Technology is clearly at the heart of a lot of what we're talking about this week. A few weeks ago, we had a big team that was at CES, and they came home saying that technology is the oxygen that we breathe, which means that every company, whether you are a financial services company, a technology company, whether you are a co-working space, everybody today is a technology company, and it's really kind of unavoidable how we are using that to shape our business and shape our world. The big question that we are here to look at today is how we are using technology for good. It's not always a rosy picture. There's reams and reams of data about how technology is helping to drive growth. I think the stat that I was looking at this morning was saying that the fourth industrial revolution is expected to create $3.7 trillion in value by 2025, and that 60% of our global GDP will be digitized by 2022. But with that comes lots of issues of inequality and bias and privacy, which is something that I'll be talking about this week. And trust is a huge challenge. So against that backdrop, there are some companies that are taking a leadership role. And the three women here are certainly amongst those. And at Business Insider last year in Davos, we launched a platform entitled Better Capitalism, which is a year-long editorial initiative, which we are then continuing to report on this year from Davos. That's really looking at how companies are redefining what value means today, right? Value is not just about shareholder value. Value is about value for employees, for communities, and then for society at large as we march towards trying to focus on the SDGs and look towards 2020. So with that, I'm going to introduce our panelists. Or do you guys want to do a quick introduction of yourself, and then we can get right into it? All right, I'll start with Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura Brownstein. I'm at WeWork now, and I've come to Davos for many years with Shelley and Talia when I was with Cosmo in 2017. So talking really directly about kind of how women were going to change the world, Goal 5 specifically, and now I'm with WeWork. So it's a whole new perspective. It's exciting to be here with all of you, and I'm speaking on my behalf, FYI.
I'm Kathy Besant. I am the Chief Operations and Technology Officer for Bank of America, about 95,000 people in my world for the firm in 35 countries.
I am Allison Du. I am the Chief Marketing Officer for Dell Technologies, which, if you are not familiar, is the original Dell, plus cuts across all of the distributed businesses that we have now become over the last number of years.
Great. All right. Well, so we're going to dive into a question which is one of the, and somebody called it today, which I didn't think was, they were called it pioneering technologies, which I thought was an interesting term to describe AI because it doesn't seem pioneering today. And Kathy, I'm going to sort of direct this question to you. I was actually in the room, I think it was 4 years ago, when Elon Musk said that AI was going to be the end of humanity. And then he sort of peeled that back and said that it was maybe just going to be the start of the Third World War. But there's so much talk about AI and its opportunities and sort of the challenges, but where do you fall? Do you agree or disagree with that?
Well, you know, if AI is the end of humanity, then the end of humanity began about 40 years ago. You know, we talk about AI as if it's something new, but if you think about it, data, models, outcome, and action based on models, it has been around for a long time. Even in the consumer banking business, we've been doing credit scoring for decades, literally decades. The difference is we've got data at scale. We've got compute power that no one could conceive of even 5 years ago. And we have outcomes that can teach the algorithms themselves. So in its purest sense, AI has been around for a long time. Fundamentally, I think we've got a choice. AI has incredible power to make us all better, to bring us to market more quickly, to help us serve our customers and clients, better risk management. You know, AI has all kinds of opportunities to move us forward and to be a great equalizer, but those are our choices. With that great power comes great risk, and it's incumbent on us, I'm all over this platform of responsible AI. It's all about capturing the potential and making sure we're responsible at the same time.
Allison, do you?
Totally agree. I mean, I always jokingly say, on the spectrum of the Elon Musk version, which would sort of imply that the Cylons are coming to get us, and if you watch Battlestar Galactica, you get that quote, and if you don't, you didn't, you don't. But we are very much in the responsible, thank you, so say we are very much in the responsible AI that technology, broadly speaking, and AI specifically, is a driver of good for the economy and for people, but to Kathy's point, does require responsibility for us as leaders, does require us to think differently about education, about societal impact, because it's quite pithy to say AI will free you up from the mundane tasks. On an IT department, a lot of the things we do in terms of AI-driven, looking at patterns for failure of technology should, in theory, take away the most mundane parts of an IT department's job. But then the question is, what is the meaningful work that those people then continue to do? And that's the place where I think collectively we're still working through, what does that really mean? Because the answer cannot be, well, we managed to make these tasks automated and driven through AI, and now there's no future for you.
So I want to get to the education piece for a second, but I also want to, and then Laura, I'm going to ask you to jump in. But first, Kathy, you just started a partnership with the Harvard Kennedy School. And one of the questions of regulation, right, are popping up all week. But who's sort of minding the ship here, right? And where's the regulation, and how do you envision that? What's the future there?
Well, we're proud to be the founding funder of the Harvard Council on the Responsible Use of AI, and it is meant to do exactly what its title would imply. The important part about the council to me is it's multidisciplinary. So people from all aspects of the discussion, academia, sellers of artificial intelligence, buyers of artificial intelligence, so meant to be a widely disciplinary discussion. The topic of regulation varies among who you talk to. You know, as a bank, it's hard to conceive of being any more regulated than we already are. That said, technology enables great decentralization of power. It does leave you with the question of where is the North Star? Who's the keeper of the North Star? And those are the kinds of questions the Harvard Council and other things have to explore. I actually wish I had a better answer. And I worry a lot about self-regulation, because self-regulation is a hard thing to do, but people are talking about it, and yet we will have to have some sort of harmonization of viewpoints so that we ensure the responsibility of all this.
I actually find it reassuring that there are multidiscipline groups coming together, that it isn't kind of one like AI guru by the administration, trying to regulate this, that it's kind of people coming at it from all these different points of view, from science, from ethics, from the people point of view. I mean, one of the ways we use AI at the We Company is, literally bringing people together, is mapping out kind of where are the pathways that people congregate to have the most productivity and creativity and connectivity during their day. So, while one worries that there's a dehumanizing aspect, there's also the possibility of creating new pathways for humans to come together and do good things like this.
That was one of my colleagues keeps saying she has this idea. I'm not sure if Katya's in the room, but she's always talking about I human, and that's going to be the theme. But again, sort of where is the humanity at the midst of it, and how is it then sort of how is AI and some of these kind of frontier pioneering technologies driving human connection? But you, Allison, you mentioned a little bit about education. So I have a son who's a junior in high school, and I was literally when you go on and you have to sign up for college tours, you need to pick a potential major or a school. So on some of the larger universities, there must be 100 of them. And as I'm going through that list with him, I was thinking I was going to come here and see you. I was like, what do I tell him to do, right? What's the option for someone, a 16-year-old boy?
So I have perhaps a slightly surprising opinion on this, given that the conversation is so much about STEM. Obviously, we need people and we need women to be educated in STEM, and math is always very important, and we need to make sure that we understand the basics of analytics. However, if you think about a future where a lot of these tasks are also done by machine, what do you need people to do? You need them to be able to have critical reasoning. You need them to be able to connect with other humans. You need them to be able to lead other humans. And we see even in our own research that a lot of college and high school age students are saying, I don't have those leadership skills, I don't have those critical thinking skills, because, and I don't think this is true in the US, but in theory, we've broadly over-indexed on science, technology, and math. And so that's slightly controversial, but I believe in the study of the humanities. I believe in teaching children, particularly in undergraduate, to learn to think. You want to go to business school, you can do that later. But learn to have a critical thinking foundation.
I was at a breakfast earlier today, and the executive director of UNICEF was saying that 50% of students, younger students worldwide, think that they want to be entrepreneurs. And I was thinking about that, Laura, and I thought that was fascinating. And I mean, you have obviously a huge global reach as well, but...
Yeah, I mean, the drive towards entrepreneurship, I think, is greater than ever because there are more tools, there are more ways to make it a reality. Obviously, you can come to a WeWork, but, one of the things we found, we have amazing 30% of our member base are enterprise companies, like Bank of America. We have incredible big companies changing the world. And there's something about the energy, I think, of some of these startups that there's something desirable about having them both in the same community. The big companies, the startups, the medium, people kind of in the 50-person range, like TFQ also. But one thing I think that I hope that we find ways to continue to foster is entrepreneurialism, that the only way to create something new and kind of revolutionize isn't to just go off on your own and do it, that we are creating more pathways to, within the constructs of a company, within kind of working with others, to bring change within organizations.
Kathy, that's a big piece of what you're doing, I know.
It is, and I'm on college and university campuses all over the world a lot, and kind of it cracks me up. What do people think entrepreneurs do? No, really, I want to be one. What do they do? If I ask the follow-up question, most people have no answer for that. When I think about what entrepreneurs do, they are great at identifying and capturing opportunities, and they are great at finding problems and solving them. That, by definition, is critical thinking. That is analytical processing, and it can happen in a small startup. In our case, we think it happens a lot in a large company. We're in the top 125 of U.S. Patent Office patent issuers every year, and it's because we've got people who are great in those skills. Just one other follow-up about STEM in the humanities. I was a Shakespeare major before I went to business school, and yet I do believe that all human...
Yes.
Isn't that interesting? I do believe that all human relationships can be explained by the study of geometry or algebra. That might explain why I've been married, shall we say, more than once. But still low single digits, okay? But my point is, I don't care how you get to critical problem solving. My view of Shakespeare is it's timeless. My view, if you want to be a ballerina, a dancer has to perform a 360-degree pirouette. Sometimes it's 270. They meet their partner at 180. It doesn't matter how you work your way into STEM or humanities or some other form of qualification versus formal education. That critical problem solving is the ballgame, and it's the ballgame for the future.
So we were talking a little bit about there's so much talk this week about younger consumers demanding companies to take a stance, right? To have a purpose and to take a stance and believe in something, and they make their buying decisions around this. And we can quote Deloitte studies and McKinsey studies and all the rest, and sort of we know that. At our Ignition conference this year, so I'm curious, so Scott Galloway said that woke was a business strategy. Now Scott's provocative for those of you who know Scott Galloway, and I really thought about that, and I thought, is it a business strategy? Is it a moral imperative? Is it a moment in time? So all of you are leading companies that are focused on purpose, and I'm wondering what you feel about that. Laura, I'm going to let you start on that.
Okay, well, my purview at the We Company is I oversee content and campaigns, so it's the storytelling. And the mission, the impact that we're trying to make is certainly central to that. Those are the stories you want to tell. Those are the stories that move people and let you kind of really illustrate what the company is trying to do. When you show a refugee program where you're finding jobs and creating opportunities for refugees or veterans, or kind of a day of service that we introduced this year where people are coming together to make good things happen, those are kind of the stories that define who you are, that define what your company really is doing, rather than the buzzword or, just the mission statement you have, on a deck someplace. But woke as a
Woke is a business strategy.
As a business strategy. I mean, I think that everybody should just kind of be aware and conscious. I don't know if it's an actual specific business strategy.
Well, I think his point was actually reasonably cynical, to be very candid. I wasn't there, but I did read the coverage. And if you look at it, it sort of basically says these companies are not wading into this conversation because they believe it. These companies are wading into this conversation because the left-leaning Democrats on the coast who have the higher buying power in the United States believe it as well. And so that, I think, I'm not even going to comment on whether the companies that he used as examples believe what they're saying or not, because that's not my place. But what I will say, more broadly speaking, is that generally speaking, the truth always outs. Like, if it's just a fad and you're just kind of leaning into purpose, and to Laura's point, it's just something you put on a PowerPoint slide. And about 8-9 years ago, suddenly everyone was purpose-driven. And it was like, purpose-driven is people like you better if you stand for something. And there's all this research that proved that. And I also always thought the research was kind of silly, because the research basically says, if you are authentic and you're not a jackass and you're actually trying to drive business value and at the same time also contribute to the community, you will do better over the long term. And I don't really think that should be so controversial a point. And so we'll see these swings of, is it this over here, is it that over there, and the tactics will change. But over the long term, the value of companies who believe in what they do, they hold on to their employees longer. Their customers trust them. They don't treat their customers like crap. All of that is pretty clear.
Otherwise, it's going to come off like pink it and shrink it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's like a veneer.
But I think what's interesting is right now, and I was talking to someone who is a chief sustainability officer for a large company, and he said, the difference now is that people are putting it front and center. The difference is now is that, at Bank of America, you've been doing this for a long time, right? It's not new, right? But now it is something that is a part of how you are presenting yourself to the world.
Yeah, I don't think that companies or human beings are successful because they have purpose. They're successful because they live their purpose, right? And I do think the whole walk versus talk nature of this is really important. If you believe that your purpose is to make people's financial lives better, then you don't think of technology as a destination. You think of technology as an enabler for your customers and your clients. You think of it as a way for them to have access to their money or investing power or capital markets in a way that makes them more effective. You live your purpose, and everybody's more successful. So it's not the purpose itself to me and to the firm. I think it's the living of the purpose.
How do you choose, though? Allison, Dell Technologies has just recently, or not necessarily even so recently, launched a larger oceans initiative. But how do you land, or how did you land there?
So we tend to gravitate towards and pick the areas that actually are directly impacted by us and our own supply chain. So if you look at what we've done in oceans plastics, it's because we actually know that if we go out and harvest those ocean plastics, we can create a closed-loop recycling program and drive more sustainable programs. It's not huge scale, but we've also done the same thing in terms of taking gold out of used motherboards. If you look at the number of the sheer amount of discarded gold that comes out of motherboards, we've harvested that gold out of motherboards. Through our recycling program, we've either then repurposed it into new technology, or some of it we've made into jewelry. And those are the types of things, they're real to us because they have something to do with our own programs and our own technology. And then the previous panel was talking a lot about unconscious bias. We were also a very early adopter of unconscious bias across all of our executives. And we tend to be a little bit less flashy about it. We're not constantly making these pronouncements, but we are driving that internal change within our own organization, whilst at the same time really looking for those places that are genuine and authentic to us because they have something to do with the business we're in.
So we have a couple minutes. So I wanted to, and this is more of a rapid fire. So every year here, you see a million case studies, right? Dozens and dozens of stories of things that sort of inspire you. Last year, I listened to a breakfast that was talking about how to use blockchain for identity mappings to help create immunization records for children in the developing world. So of everything you've seen, either this year or last year, one great example of tech for good that you can present.
Do you want us to come back to you?
I'm going to go basic. That, I was here 4 years ago when there were 20 of us in this room. and the power of the female quotient platform. Let's go with that as a power for good technology. What Shelley and Talia and Alan and everybody have done and built here, the fact that we all come back here every year to exchange our ideas and take the time to kind of really honestly grapple with, like, not just softball questions, like real things, will never stop inspiring me. It's awesome.
You know, the specific I was thinking of has to do with predicting weather patterns. It doesn't sound like the kind of thing a banker would say, but let me generalize it more. To say the power to predict human suffering before it happens, and the ability to be prepared, to have immunizations in place, to have resilient, in my case, resilient data centers that will function for people even when the weather doesn't. You know, I think the notion of predicting those things that we can fix if we know about them is really powerful and really inspiring, and living up to it's daunting, but hell yeah.
It's hard to pick. There's so many, and I think we talk so much about the negatives. But, you know, look at what Thorne is doing around using AI and data to predict how they sexual trafficking of young girls and how they intercept that and stop it before it happens. And thousands of young girls released from sexual slavery. That's one. Or the work that we do with the government of India around digital health and giving people access to immunizations and health information out in rural India that they would never have. I mean, there are lots and lots of these examples, and the theme is take a problem, solve it through technology. It's maybe not going to get as big a talk track as some of the robots are coming to get us, but it's real.
No, the robots are coming to get us is just more of a provocative question. But
Good headline.
Well, it is a good headline, but I think, you know, we often talk about this and saying, right, and it gets, we don't have in our 1:10 second, but it gets into sort of a job training question, right? I mean, yes, people are concerned about 150 years ago during the first industrial revolution. We're here talking about the fourth industrial revolution, right? We were all farmers, and now we've all evolved, and everybody has. So I don't know if we have enough time for it, but maybe, Kathy, we could talk about sort of that future of work piece of it. But I do think that we all, I mean, you're involved in rapid retraining, but we all, I'm less pessimistic about that.
I'm not pessimistic at all. I'm optimistic. Society has shown resilience through all of the industrial revolutions. This is not new. The speed is new. The need to pull for reskilling as much as push reskilling is new because of that democratization we were all talking about. But lifelong learners always do well through all four industrial revolutions. It's the whole idea that you are not defined by what you've been, but defined by what you become. And all of us as companies creating that opportunity and people seizing it.
All right. That's it. We're done. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.